Dr. Prewitt.
All right, welcome everybody. This week we are going over business basics with Dr. Prewitt. And we also are going over lean canvas at the end. I'll be just talking to you about the lean canvas model and how to use that to kind of start piecing together your business with pieces that you've already been working on, but just kind of a new framework for you. So very excited about that. I'm sorry that I wasn't here last week. I had a family emergency, and Dr. Wander Eugene was wonderful and gave me backup all week, and I'm so appreciative of her. But I also, as part of that, I feel totally out of the loop with you all, and I am behind on getting the check-in booking links out. So I will be doing that tomorrow. I also would love to so we're going to do the check-ins with the full team. So it's going to be me, RJ, Dr. Wanda Eugene, Shona even might sit in on them. But so we're going to send out links to schedule that. But I also want to offer, I'm going to send out links for you guys to schedule an hour or so with me if you want to just go through and we can work on any past assignments together and just knock them out and talk through them. Anything that you're having like a little bit of trouble with, or if you just want company, I would be happy to do that with you, and it would help me kind of reconnect with you after being gone last week. So you'll get more on that tomorrow. And I've also seen some assignments come through because of the craziness of last week. I did not get a chance to look at the assignments. So I will get to those and I will be grading them and get everything back to you. So thank you for your patience and understanding. I really appreciate that. Skylar, it's good to see you. I hope you had a great trip. All right, so we are kicking off the beginning of our speakers, and our first speaker is Dr. Prewitt, who is going to talk to you about business basics. From here on out, we are pretty much going to have speakers every week, either for the full time or half the time. So you'll be introduced to a variety of industry experts. Some of them you'll be able to have one-on-ones with if you want to, or reach out to them. So really, it's going to feel like a ton of information, and that's what it's supposed to feel like. So I just want to forewarn you that it's going to once again feel like drinking from a fire hydrant, and that's absolutely fine. We're giving you the base and we're giving you the connections so that you can go back and you can really dive deeper and ask those questions. But you don't know what you don't know. So we're going to do really broad strokes. And also in those broad strokes, give you lots of details. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Prewitt. And Dr. Prewitt, do you mind just giving a background on yourself to everybody?
Absolutely. I actually have that as one of my slides. Let me go ahead and just share that now. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Hopefully you can. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And you can hear me, hopefully, okay. So let's just dive right in. So we'll start off a little bit about me. My name is Anderson Prewitt. I am really now I work mostly in the space of AI innovation, data science, things like that. My background is actually electrical engineering. I went on to school, got a PhD in material science, and for the past decade or a long time, I've been working mostly with in the kind of the technology digital transformation space, meaning that I help businesses, both small to large to enterprise, figure out how to leverage technology to do stuff, make more money, be more efficient, save money, do cool things, use AI, leverage technology, et cetera. And really it's just, I think my space has been more, how can you really use science, technology, engineering, and math to really innovate and grow a business or a company. In my spare time, I also do a good amount of work in the area of like STEM education. So I work with students and schools and things like that, trying to help people really learn how to learn science, technology, engineering, and math, and how they can use it to expand their career, their horizons, et cetera. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I can, I think you guys get these slides so we can kind of go on from there. But I don't want to spend the whole time talking about me. I want to just kind of dive right in. So this is the business model canvas. I believe you guys may have seen this before. If you haven't, ta-da, here it is. But you'll definitely get to know this pretty soon as you're kind of exploring and talking about your business. And I won't dive into it. I just want to kind of give you kind of like a, ta-da, here it is, show you a little bit about it. The two main things to remember is this is basically just a one-page business plan in a sense, right? So you should basically be able to describe, kind of craft, elevator pitch, really understand your business in different ways by using this kind of as a guide. It talks about different areas to think about: customer segments, channels, revenue streams, cost structure. You may or may have not gotten into all that. At the end of the day, it's generally focused on two main things they call product market fit, meaning you got a product, something you're trying to sell, and a market, meaning somebody you're trying to sell it to, right? And that's pretty much, in the simplest terms I can think of, the business model canvas. And like I said, you'll be getting more into that as you're doing your businesses and your stuff. But essentially, that's kind of how I've kind of crafted what I want to talk about today, right? Really talking about sales and marketing. We're going to, that product and market, really kind of tying those together. And really going to kind of go through a couple of things to kind of describe it. So first up, I'm going to show you a couple slides that I made, kind of really trying to think through, theory. What does it really mean? I'm going to ask questions on these slides. I highly encourage you, none of recording this, to actually write these questions down or answer them for yourselves as I kind of go through and have a question. Like, question marks aren't just for show. Like, it really is. These are important things to think about as you're thinking about your own business, right? And then there's a couple, I guess, activities or like templates that I'll kind of leave you with at the end that you can use and utilize probably for the second half of class, or for, as you move forward, that can really help you to hopefully kind of shape and think through different aspects of your business. So without further ado, here we go. So the first thing I think that is important for anybody as a business owner to kind of really think about is, do you really know your business, right? And what I mean by that is, do you know your business? And do you feel like you know your business inside and out, right? And at any point in time, particularly in the early phases, and you should probably kind of ask it again to kind of really re-up and see, are you really, advocating and learning this? But internally and externally, there are questions you should be asking and making sure you can answer and drop it down and constantly asking yourself, like, and some of this is like, personal stuff about you or your business, whatever. And some of it is about like the external stuff about the people you're dealing with. Like, who are you, right? What do you do, and how can you do it best, right? If you're talking about yourself as a person or even a human being, if you're talking about like, fully more actualization, whatever else, but definitely for a business, as a business owner, as somebody starting a business, my question is, who are you and what do you do, and why should I buy it from you? Why do you do it better? And that, if you fully understand those three questions, that leads to the next set of three questions, which I feel like the more external questions, right? It's about, who's your customer, right? What is it they need, and how can you best provide, right? And the external questions really kind of speak to the market. Those internal questions really kind of speak to your product, right? And really, what we're talking about in a real nutshell is understanding fully the inside and outside of what it is you're trying to do, you're trying to build, you're trying to grow. And there are two ways that I like to think about it or look at it, right? The first is what I call an administrative analysis, like what's important in any business, right? So some of this is very generalized from the stuff I read and studied over the years. I think you can find it useful for a lot of different things. So there's several books and different theories about like the different things that are important in a business. I think there are probably like 6 main things that every business must have, right? In some shape, form, or fashion, right? One, you're going to have some kind of value. It's exchange, right? If you have a product, there's something valuable that you have, whether you're creating it, you're delivering it, whether you're making something, you're doing something, you're providing something valuable is being created. And ideally, that valuable something is going to someone else, right? You're delivering it, you're building it, you're giving it to them some kind of way. So there's a value exchange, there's a value delivery that happens. In order for that to really happen, the value exchange, some kind of sales need to happen, right? And then some kind of marketing needs to happen, right? You want to get paid and know how much you're getting paid and be able to calculate that. And you also need to make sure you're interacting, you're dealing with customers. That's a big part of it. In order for those things to happen and keep happening, you have to have, finances, money coming in, money going out, accounting, and know what's going on. That's an important part of business. And you got to manage all that, right? Orchestrating all that and making sure it flows together. And if all six of those things are happening, you can say you have a business and they're happening well, your business is probably doing pretty well, right? Especially in this day age, right? When we think about all the things, the internet, AI, cloud, chat GPT, all these things, technology plays a huge role in that, right? Regardless of what type of business, whatever you have, everybody's paying for stuff online, right? Everybody wants to use their credit card. Everybody wants to do that. So how do you let technology fill in some of these things and make that work for you? Well, there's several ways, right? So we talked about, I'll just kind of go through all those different things, right? The value creation, value delivery, marketing, sales, financial management. And I would say operational management is another piece of it, like how you manage your operations. Really, if you think about it even more simpler terms, right? Because I mean, 6 is, a fairly simple explanation. I think 3 is even smaller number, right? So there are really 3 main things that's happening, right? Every business is creating some kind of value and trying to manage or control it. That's one thing they do, right? Which is, those 2 things, value creation and operational management. You're trying to constantly find customers and deliver that value to them, right? That's the second thing that every business is doing. So that's marketing, value delivery is always happening. And ideally, you're trying to get paid enough for that value you created so that you can get more money and gain money so you can repeat the process over and over again, right? That's that sales and financial management, right? Selling right. So production, distribution, monetization, every business, everywhere, that's what they're doing, period, point blank. And if you can understand that and can answer those questions specifically and kind of control those things in your business, you're probably going to be doing okay, right? And really what we're talking about is, do we understand if is your business healthy? Like, how's it really, really doing? And I don't want you guys to get caught up on trying to read everything. I'm really, the whole goal of this, I want to talk through it, and we'll talk, slides and stuff later, and you got the recording, but I want you to make sure that this is in the back of your mind, always going through. So just kind of think about it as you're thinking through your business and what you're building, what you're trying to put together, right? What is the purpose of your business? What is something like, why does your business exist? This is a question you should be able to answer at all times. I'm here, I'm starting this business because of this. This is why my business is here, right? The second thing you need to know is those connections and interactions that are important, right? How are customers getting to your business? What are the activities you do to get customers? How are you interacting with, the broader world, right? And then finally, what are the key elements? What are the things that your business actually does? What are the parts? What are the process? What are the pieces of your business that make it happen, right? And you can see if your business does all those things, right? If you have a product or a service consistently available, you'll probably have a pretty stable business, right? If you can sustain that growth and you can sustain that marketing effort, you can sustain those customers, your business is probably going to be okay. If you have strong financials and you're getting money and keeping money and you can, weather the storm, your business is probably pretty healthy if you can say yes to those 3 things. And so again, it's, I don't necessarily want this to become an equation that you have to try to remember and write down every time before you go and make any transaction. But I think it's just, if you can answer those kind of basic questions of why, how, and what, right? You can break it down just to that for your business. This is why we're here. This is what we do, and this is how we keep customers. If you can answer that, then you're probably on the right track. Okay. So I just want to make sure I at least say that part. Now, I think the next thing that I think is important to kind of look at and understand from a just kind of broader aspect is how all those things kind of fit together, right? From a technical standpoint, right? Because really what you're talking about in this day and age is, what is it that's unique, innovative about your business? And how can you take these different things we're talking about here, these different questions I'm asking you, different things that you're doing in class, and bring them together, in a very cool and unique way that makes your business stand out above others, right? And this is really where we talk about that inside, what's really going on inside the business, right? This is like the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty. And I'm not gonna, write a dissertation, I don't want to get too complicated, right? But if you think about it, you can still even break that down in a much simpler way, right? When we talk about value, sales, marketing, and the business management, it's really about money and resources. That's really what you're talking about at the end of the day, right? You have money, resources going in and money coming out, or you have money going in and resources coming out. That's in and out. That's what's happening all day at your business, right? The value is created when you have some money that you put in, that you put some resources in, you get money out. That's creating value. A sale is literally, some money out, some money gets input, right? So you buy stuff, you buy products, you put money in, you hire people, whatever. And then the money output, ideally is greater. That means you have the sale, right? If you're talking about marketing, that's, some resources. You're putting up flyers, you're doing, whatever it is. What you put into that marketing effort, the time, energy, the sweat equity, whatever, the output of it, those great flyers, that great campaign should give you resources that are very useful for your company at the end of the day, right? And business management is just about really controlling, like, you want the smallest amount of money input to get you the most massive output of resources and stuff for your company. And that's really what it's all about, right? So I want to be very clear when I use these terms, because I'm not trying to have a whole, I guess, accounting seminar right here about EBITDA, when I start to get into what that is, or debits and credits and all that kind of stuff. When I say money and when I say resources, here's what I'm talking about, right? In the most simple form, right? Money you can be used to get stuff, right? So money input means the expenses, the costs, the salaries. That's the stuff that you're putting into your business. And the output of that should be some kind of income or revenue, profits, royalties, those kind of things, right? On the other hand, the resources that you have, they can be used to do stuff, right? So that's the actual sweat equity or human resource or some kind of software. That's a resource, right? And by using that resource or putting into that resource, what you should get out is, more value for the company. It's more valuable because you got this software you're using, or you have more assets now that's been created, or more products, like those kind of things. And that's what I mean when I say, resources versus money, so just to kind of be super clear about it. And the reason that's so critical is because if you can do a good job of managing how you leverage your resources, your money, your inputs, and all that stuff, and where you're focused on value or marketing or any of those things, strategy, that can actually be a big deal in how your business can grow and innovate and do all these other cool things, right? So let me do the next slide since I want to see all the graphics. This isn't necessarily, this could be there's a whole like theory and lecture, like how to really do that for your business terms when you're trying to, depending on where you're at, whether you're trying to grow, whether you're trying to develop, like where you're at in your company. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is understanding the relationships between the value you create and how you're making sales, how you're doing marketing, how you're doing business management, and which part or which thing you need to focus on any given time is extremely important to how quickly and how well your business can kind of scale up and grow, right? So that's honestly a conversation for another day, but I want to at least kind of give you guys a highlight of it, because I think it is important to at least start early thinking about where you are and where you want to go, right? And so again, at the end of the day, just kind of put a pin in this. What are those kind of internal questions that are important to you, as a business with customers and what you're doing, right? Who are you? What's your purpose? What do you do? What are the elements that make your business important? Like, what are the things that you do? And how do you do it? How do you interact with customers? How do you market? How do you do those things, right? The more you can kind of take your time and kind of really think through those things, the better off you'll ultimately be in terms of establishing and being able to really understand internally and fundamentally what type of business you have and who you are as a business, right? So those are, like, I'd say probably the most important, in my opinion, internal questions you can ask. And that's about you. All right. I think, yeah. And so, as I said before, the next thing, once you kind of understand those kind of internal elements, then obviously it's the external elements of what about your customers, right? Who are they? What do they need? And how do you get it for, right? So that's research, planning, optimization. And so a lot of understanding that is really like, in terms of like other terms you may have used, like that customer persona, right? What do you know about the people you're trying to sell stuff to? In terms of what do they need? What's their problem and how are you solving it? What's your first solution, right? What's your second solution? This is all stuff that not only goes in the business model canvas, but things you should be thinking about in terms of how well you understand who you're trying to get to spend money with you, right? And then how you do this for them, that I mean, honestly, I think it's optimizer because I think it's a little bit of the customer journey in terms of like how they get to you. But I think it's also, you know, there's also a kind of product element of that and how you deliver what they need, right? And those things do kind of go hand in hand, right? So I think at this point, I'd like to kind of take a slant, and I think we can probably start talking about like the sales and kind of the marketing aspects because I kind of want to get you guys into like after all this talking at you for a while, I kind of want to start with some more interactive stuff, right? Because I don't want anyone to have to, I know it's 6:30, people had a long day. I want to make sure we actually have some stuff that you can like take home and use, right? So let me just at a high level, let's talk about a little bit of what's important, or I think is important in terms of like sales, right? And this is kind of is fairly high level overviews, right? But like when you're trying to sell, what you're trying to do, right? What's the best way to make sales, right? And it's really, I think a combination of things you have to do. When you do what thing will definitely vary, but it's good to kind of have and really think through various strategies and various ways to really get in contact with and engage and with your customers, right? You have to find the right customer and you have to find the right approach, right? You want to reach the customer, but you got to kind of plan how you do that, right? You have to have resources for how you sell, but you also want to measure performance to see if you're doing it right. So all those things have to happen, and there are a bunch of methods for each one that really impact whether or not you're going to make money and you are selling and you're doing a good job, right? So at a very basic level, right, you kind of need to determine how much time, money, and effort is required, right? And there's no hard and fast rule about this because it's going to vary per industry, per customer, for whatever else. But a lot of it's going to start with just having a plan, right? So setting up not just a business plan, but a marketing plan. We're going to talk about kind of a very generic marketing plan toward the end of this kind of lecture to talk through what that could look like, right? So at the end of the day, between just high level, what I'm trying to get you to think about, you actually go into your like lean canvas activity, right? That is essentially going to be your kind of one-page business plan. So by the end of tonight, you'll have a business plan. But also, if you kind of, with what we'll talk about at the end, ideally you'll have at least the beginnings of a marketing plan, right? And with a business and marketing plan, you can start then doing the stuff that you've actually probably been doing over the rest of this course, right? Trying to understand your market. I think you guys already have like talked to your customers and asked questions, done that. So you have a good understanding of your market now, right? So if by 8:30 or 8:35, I'll give you a couple minutes, right? You'll have a business plan. You start at one. We'll have a marketing plan. You already understand your market. So now we can spend the majority of the time from here on really focused on how to generate a profitable business, right? And that's kind of where we're going with this. And in about an hour and some change, we will have that. So yay for you. So okay, first step, let's talk about who's the right customer for you, right? And again, a lot of this is just things I want to make sure you're thinking about, right? Because there's essentially kind of three flavors of customer. There's existing customer, I mean, people who are already giving you money. There's new customers, people who haven't given you money yet. And then there's having that mix of customers where it's like some old ones, some new ones, and you're getting them from both of them, right? All of these customers are good because they're customers. They're giving you money in this ideal scenario you have, right? It's basically your customers and everybody else. And that's okay. But it's important to understand your type of business as you think through it, who's your target customer? Because even if you're honestly a bad business, so you start whatever else, once you make a couple sales, you'll already kind of be in this situation. New customers are basically the ones you're trying to get. Existing customers, basically either old ones, somebody who's already paid you. And then the mix is like people who are either still paying you or they may pay you again, or you're still providing services somewhere in that mix. And what you need to kind of, as you kind of expand and you have that, you need to think through in your sales plan and what you're doing, what's the target customer for you at this time and even further out, right? I think new customers are everybody's target customer when you don't have any customers. That's just facts, right? Once you do get customers, one of the things a lot of times that people forget is like it's addictive, right? Get new customers, and you want that. No one's ever saying don't get new customers. However, you have a higher likelihood of being able to sell to somebody who's already bought from you and had a good experience than it's easier to sell to somebody who already likes you and knows you and wants to and has done business with you before than trying to break in somebody all the way together new, right? So if you know that, and if you have your business set up and your sales cycle set up and your product set up where you have this initial product to get them in, you've sold them this, you establish that trust, they like you. Well, hey, I can also sell you this and sell you this and upsell you, whatever else. That's a win-win for everybody because they like you, they know you, and they're getting more good stuff from you. And you already have a customer, have somebody who can actually get things from, which is great. The other side is you may have a model of business where you have to get constant churn because the nature of your business, new customers and more customers is, the key to your business. If you're not getting new customers, you're kind of falling off. And there's certain businesses like that as well, right? Like, to a certain extent, if you think about like movie theaters, right? Like, yes, it's great to have people who come and join the club and are there all the time. They may have something to that, but really, you want somebody new coming in that theater every time a new movie comes out, because for that movie, at least, you're a new customer because they might have seen that movie before, right? If you have somebody return that comes to the movie, great, cool, awesome. This customer is wonderful, but new customers really what's driving that business to get those super blockbuster numbers. And so, depending on what you're doing and what type of thing you need to have, you have to think through that as you're planning who's the right thing for you, right? And the same thing with that mix, right? Even with a mix of some new and some old, you're probably going to have more profits or more sales generated by one or the other demographic. And it's important that you kind of know and think through who that is, right? I think either way, whether we talk about new customers, old customers, we're just customers in general, the most important thing is really thinking through how do you plan on reaching them and interacting with them to be able to get that sale? Like, how are you going to talk to them or engage with them to get their money or get their value from them and exchange, get the value in them, right? Are you, is there some special way you're communicating with them, right? Are you communicating with them directly with your customer? Or is it indirect where you're communicating with somebody else who does it, right? Are you joining forces with your customer to co-create something? Or are you joining forces with some third party to do some cool things, right? There's a lot of, I was just, a company, I think I invested in something I was looking at the other day. They are a startup and they're trying to raise funds. And one of the things they're saying that's helped them to reach customers is they've signed partnership agreements to join forces with other existing organizations who do stuff that's, not the same, but peripheral to what they do, right? So if you're a movie theater and you partner with the best popcorn company, and now it's like really exclusive popcorn distributor for this movie theater, well, my popcorn company now has a whole wide range of customers who are exclusively going to buy my stuff because I'm in this movie theater that has a whole bunch of folks who really like popcorn, right? That partnership could be great. Or it could be, maybe social media. Like I have the best graphics for my popcorn for whatever reason. My popcorn videos are going viral, like, ooh, look at the butter, whatever, right? Because who knows what'll go viral, I don't know, right? But for whatever reason, people are like, oh man, that popcorn sure looks good. I gotta get some now because I have a great communication game for my popcorn. Either way, you have to establish sometimes trial and error, but ideally from that thoughtful, planning ahead of time, what is the best way to reach your customers and how are you going to, do that fairly consistently? Again, as we talk about planning, key question, how much time, money, and effort are necessary to get where you need to go, right? Do you have a sales budget? We often think about, oh man, when that money starts rolling in, that's going to be great. How much money will it take to get your money, right? Is it just the time? Because there's a cost associated whether it's hard or not, right? Because even if you're doing it all by yourself, your time is worth something, right? Your time is valuable. Time is more valuable than money. You'll find it out as you go, right? If you don't know it now, trust me, it is. So the time you put in, are you budgeting for that? If you're not doing it, are you budgeting to hire somebody else to do X, Y, Z, right? Do you have a compensation strategy, right? If you know that, okay, I can get $10 every time I sell this thing, what's the cost of that sale, right? How much does it cost me to make? How much does it cost me to sell it? And is it worth it? Yes. If I do this thing myself, I can get $100 every time. If I'm willing to give somebody else $20, I can get $80 every time, but I don't have to do it. And so, which is more? If I can basically just sell the same thing and I do it all myself, I make $100. if I can do the same thing and for $20, somebody else can do it, I get 80, they get 20, right? Yeah, I don't get the full thing, but I didn't have to do anything. So now I have more time to go and do it myself. So now instead of if I'm doing one and somebody else is doing one or selling one or whatever else, instead of selling for the same effort, right? Instead of just selling $100 worth of stuff, I'm not selling 180, right? When you really get to scale, because I hired somebody to do it on commission or 20% or whatever it is, right? And who knows, it could be the total other way. Maybe they make 80%, or whatever. You have a bunch of folks that you're only getting 20%, but it's super scalable for whatever reason. And sometimes that's even better because if you can scale it in such a fashion where it's, if you do it yourself, you make $100 every time. But if you have some other people do it and you make $20, if you have it set up where basically you can have, 100 people making $20, that's, or 1,000 people doing $20, that's $20,000, right? That's more than 100 for less effort from you. And so those calculations, a lot of that goes into your planning and how you operate and what your model is, how scalable it is, which is things you can talk about in terms of how you're planning it. But you have to make sure those are things you take into account every time. And then I think this is the part that I think is, I get the most excited about because I do this a lot, but I think it's important, especially now, regardless of what your business is. I think a lot of people fall in the trap where they think they have a super, super brand new idea, or they think it's super, super old school, wherever they are on that, kind of spectrum of it. The reality is technology is here and it's here to stay. And so when it comes to sales, there's literally some digital technical app, something that can integrate or helps or hurts or affects how you can sell, where you can sell, and how and when you can sell at this stage of the game. And so fully understanding your product or what you're trying to sell or how you're trying to sell it can be a pretty big deal, because what that means is you can leverage websites and sell directly from there. You can sell directly on social media. You can print out an ebook and have a sales link directly in that. You can have videos that directly can sell stuff, and all of that is not just marketing, it is marketing as well, but it's also directly sales. Like the closer, the less friction, the closer your customer's money is to getting to you, the more you can shorten that gap between your customer, their money, and you, the more you can get and the more consistently you can do it. And so that's a very important piece of making sure that you're leveraging these tools, because they can make it much easier for you to get paid and get your money and get sales quicker, sooner, faster. And again, I think one thing that is, I'm not want to say not done enough, but I think not enough people spend enough time on this part, is measuring the performance. Every campaign, every email thing, everything you're sending out, how well did it do? You put up some flyers, in 1 week. If you have a lawn care business and you put up flyers in the neighborhood, 1 week you put flyers in the neighborhood, 1 week you put flyers on cars at a grocery store, 1 week you don't put up any flyers and you just send out the emails. Which week did you get more sales? Which week did your stuff change, right? Knowing that and tracking that and seeing week over week, day over day, whatever else, that tells a lot about where you can best spend your time. Because if you have your career after you cut yards going around and putting up flyers, is that the best use of your time if that's not really what's getting you sales? If you can just have one person once a week set some up to send out those emails, and that gets you more sales, your crew can be cutting 2 other yards. That's money out of your pocket or money you could be making but you don't know that if you're not tracking it. They all look the same to you. And that's the importance of analytics and measurement, which is what I do when I've seen so many times from just measuring, minutia, you would think, right? The most of those things, how much that's impacted the bottom line or the money at the end of the day, right? And again, when you put all these things together, right, finding your approach, finding your target with the customers and sales, there's a lot of question marks about how do you do this and what do you do, right? I don't have an answer for you right now, right? And you may not have an answer right now, but that's okay. The important part is to change these question marks into some tactical, actual, here's what I'm gonna do, actual things. And just understanding that in order to do that, you have to kind of look at it and put it all together, right? In some time frame, when are you gonna find the approach, when are you gonna find your customers, and how do you put all those together, right? So in a nutshell, that's, sales. I want to stop here and kind of go into on the sales part and kind of where you get to it and kind of go into the marketing side, because I think this is where, if nothing else, what I want to leave you with is kind of, we're going to walk through how to put together a marketing plan and what to think through. and a couple of like tools and tips and things that will be, I think super helpful in kind of getting there as you move forward. So I think, one thing that we kind of look at is like, what is marketing? And when we talk about like marketing and sales and like the customer journey, how do you get there? So one, fully understanding, marketing is basically just awareness, right? And, when you talk about marketing, there's three main types, right? It's like, advertising, which you pay for, right? You give somebody money, they say your stuff, and that's great. Or, publicity, which you pray for, like, oh man, I hope they notice me, whatever else. I think that the highest level is referrals, where somebody likes your stuff so much to somebody else, where you say you yay for with an exclamation point, right? Because if you can go from I'm paying someone else to talk about my stuff to ooh, people just know about my stuff without me having to pay for it, to ooh, people like my stuff so much they tell other people about it, get it. That's definitely a hierarchy of where you want to be on it, right? And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, like really what marketing is at the end of the day, and for as you go there, right? Another thing is these are like the stages of like the buying cycle. So you start with making somebody aware of it. Okay, they know you exist. The real, I think, key is that consideration phase where you go from marketing and actually go to sales, where you actually convert, right? And that can be, there's a lot of ways you can do this where you make them consider it. It could be face to face, like you're talking to them one-on-one. It could be from seminars or workshops, things like that. It could be from other things you can do, right? And at the end of the day, that final decision, that's the sale, where it's like they go from, yes, I know about that, I'm thinking about that, I'm getting that. That's what you want to be like, I'm getting that. And from trials, free trials, or giving a quote or a coupon, or just that, getting to the invoice, that's where you want to be, right? The closer you get to that sales portion, where they actually ready to make the exchange of their value for your value, right? Their valuable cash or money that they have for your valuable product or service or whatever that you have. When they're ready to make the exchange, that's when the sale actually happens, right? And so again, I talked about the awareness of market, pay for it, pray for it, yay for it. That's, marketing 101. But I think this is a way that you can think about the customer journey and how that, that really fits into these different phases, right, of a business, right? So if you look at, let me go ahead and put them out there, that awareness, that consideration, and actual sale, people, your customers, they need different stuff at different times, right? So when we talk about awareness, the whole point of marketing and creating awareness is because your customer or your soon-to-be customer, or just the people out there who aren't your customer yet, but the ones you want to be a customer, they need knowledge. First thing they need is knowledge about who you are, what you do, and those questions. Like they need to know you exist, right? So you want to be interested. These are people who need knowledge. They're interested. So we have no clue where to begin. Learn about you, because really, we're talking about this from a standpoint of what you're doing, right? You're starting a marketing campaign. But even though that's how we're talking about it, how we want to think about it, how we need to feel about it is, what's their pain point? Like, what do they need? And your customer needs something. And ideally, what they need is what you got and what you're going to give them and what you're going to sell them, right? And so this journey that I'm describing is, you're basically looking at their needs and fulfilling their needs at various different points to get to, from just general awareness about what you have that can fill their need, to, hey, give me this thing that fills my need. So step one is they need some knowledge, right? And so you're doing something to generate awareness, right? And there's a lot of the stuff you can do for free. This can be advertisements, free guides, free videos, free articles. You've seen the little email article attachment. A good one is like those what you call it, those infomercials, right? Those are just like free videos, free articles, whatever else about this super cool thing you need that's happening, right? But that's, people who are up and watching whatever else, they're getting that knowledge that they need, right? At a certain point, you have another segment of customers who need a plan, right? That's the reason that they're considering your stuff, is because they need to know how to get from A to B, right? They have some interest, but they don't know like the step-by-step how to get there. They need some examples. They need to know how to get from A to B. That's what you're trying to give them. And that's when they get that consideration phase. And that's when you go a little deeper than just like the little video to the full on, like, here's the samples, and give them a catalog, give them whatever you can. And then that kind of that phase 3, where you're really trying to get them like, hey, click that button, send that credit card, like make that sale. That's when they need results. Like, okay, I'm buying this thing today because I need results, right? And so at that point, that's where you want to get something that's a little closer to the dollars. Was, hey, here's a free trial. Go ahead, you already signed up. Just go ahead and keep it because you like it. Go ahead and try it. Here's a coupon so you can get it right now today for this price. Whatever it is, basically at that point, what your customer needs is some results. They need you to show them with their plan, whatever you're doing, that, hey, this works, I need it, and thank you, here are my dollars, take my money now. Like that's where you need them, and that's where you want them, right? And that's, a good place for everyone. So this is one way to kind of think about that. Like in another one sheet, this is a basically like a customer profile, right? So if you're to think about your your key customer, right? And this is an activity you should do literally for like in real time. Like give this person, I got a little random, bubble here, like, draw a picture, put a picture, random picture on his, whatever else, give them a name. This is Sarah. What does Sarah want? Tell me about Sarah. Sarah is 33 years old and she stays in the suburbs, and she, has 2.5 kids and has a white dog with a spot on it. It's a Cocker Spaniel, whatever, right? Go in, right? But I really want you to try to get in the mindset and tell me who Sarah is, right? Because we want to talk about, how do you get Sarah, who has that white dog and the 2.5 kids and stays in the suburbs, how do you get her to want your product if Sarah's your target demographic? It could be Jim, who's, stays in a condo downtown, has no kids, and likes cats. That's fine too, right? If that's your guy, that's your guy, whoever it is. But go ahead, give them a name, give them a background, give them, what's their race, what's their gender, whatever they got. Give all that stuff and really think through, how do you get Sarah or Tom or Jim or Cindy or Sue or Juan or whoever? How do you get them to go from, after you describe them and know what they are and who your customer is, how do you get them to go from needing their knowledge to giving them a plan to providing them results? And what do you have to do that? What are the questions that they would ask you if they were like, man, I need to know whatever, right? Because, if they need knowledge, they're literally experiencing some kind of problem. Like a customer is someone with a problem that you're trying to solve. That's like the starting point, right? So if that's what that is, how do you get there? How do you get them there? And how do you kind of keep them there? Once they kind of have a clearly defined problem, how do you really drill down on what the opportunity looks like for them, right? How do you help them decide on the approach to the solution, right? That's when you're trying to give them the results. And if you can kind of walk through all these things and get to this, like, this is what you do. Once you kind of answer these questions, and if you can really provide that solution, the value that you provide to answer these questions, that's like the headline. That's like the key unique thing you have for your business. You need to talk about that. That's what you need to be telling folks, because that's something that's important and be cool and useful to know. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal, right? I think my one company that does a really good job of this, to kind of walk through that marketing and sales cycle, is Microsoft. Like I love this graphic. This is from Microsoft's like customer lifecycle marketing, right? And they're like, yo, we're gonna get you, keep spending money with us. We're gonna get you started, get you there. And if you look at it, they go through our full process, right? About, we need knowledge, need a plan, need results, right? So everything we talked about, the awareness, the market, all the stuff, they do that, right? So going from knowledge, so they from renewing or starting to advocating for it. They walk you through this part, right? So this is where they have social media, they'll do cold calls, emails, all that basic stuff to generate knowledge about whatever Microsoft product they're selling right now. And then the folks who get past this and go, okay, I know about it now, right? The folks who need a plan, right? They have full-on websites and campaigns and lead generation, whatever else, to help people explore and evaluate and really decide what it is they need and want, and what that plan is for them. And then they go through all that, and then they come back and be like, hey, now they're ready to make a purchase, either make a purchase of one thing, or the existing customer, they want to expand to something else, right? This is the folks where they really are digging in, where they'll give them a full-on pitch deck and have meetings and sales scripts and really drill it home. And then once you do that and you purchase and you expand and you buy something, well, they take you back around again. Well, maybe it's time to renew and get something else. Let me advocate for that. Let me tell you about it some more. Let's explore. Let's evaluate some new stuff you may do. And they keep it going and going and going, right? This is it's not accidental. This is a figure eight, infinity. It never stops. That's like, yeah, if you can have that Microsoft game, more power to you. That's wonderful, because if done correctly, they keep it, like what you don't like, PowerPoint. Like I'm using PowerPoint right now, right? I've been using PowerPoint for I don't know how long, because I have to, because every time I can't use Windows 95 anymore, just because I have to renew and expand and purchase and get the next one, right? It just is what it is. And so that's how you need to think about your marketing to sales to marketing to sales, like life cycle for your business. What's your loop to loop, right? What's your way to kind of get from here to there, whatever else? I don't know, but I definitely encourage you to think and see, can you figure out one of those for yourself? That would be ideal. Everybody wants to make the Microsoft money. I think that would be wonderful to be Bill Gates, but hey, we'll see. All right. So that's I guess my 2 cents on like the marketing and the sales and how we go from sales to marketing and kind of how that sales of your product connects to that market, fit kind of thing that we talked about before. And really that's how we get to that kind of greater business model canvas. And so all the stuff we talked about at the end of the day, it really kind of takes us back to this where, again, on the canvas, we talk about product, talk about market, we talk about, this is basically sales on this side, marketing on this side. And so all the things that get you there and all the things we talked about should really, at the end of the day, help you to think through what that looks like for you or for your product or for what you're trying to do. All right. That's kind of, the point of most of the stuff. So I've been talking for quite a while. I've been talking at you, and I hope you guys have been engaged. And that's wonderful. I would like to spend the last few minutes of this, like an hour before we take a break, to really look at an actual marketing campaign, and let's look at what it would look like to actually build one of these yourself for your business or whatever, like the type of questions you would ask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go over it in a kind of a mock document. At the end, I have some links I'll share with you guys. You can kind of use that to kind of build your own, plus a couple tools that I think will be kind of useful. All right. So that's like, we're almost there. We're home stretch. All right. Let's talk about your marketing campaign. All right. So first up, what's the this is what I consider like the marketing campaign kind of hierarchy, right? Or like the elements, like what goes into it. So first you need some kind of marketing content, right? Like what's it gonna be, right? What's gonna go in there? Probably need to know like your timeline, like when do you need to market? Like when do you want to get these sales? Is it like most people gonna say yesterday I want to make money? Okay, fine. But if you're really marketing, like when do you want to have your marketing campaign launch or go out, or when do you want to do that stuff? Right. What are the marketing assets that you have? Like, are they shared? Are they just you? Whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm horrible with graphics and graphic design and drawing stuff, right? I'm horrible with like logos and cool slogans, but I know there's a lot of people who are really good at that. And if I can pay them or give them some money to do that for me, then that's what I'll do. And a lot of times, especially in these days now with everything in the cloud, it's very easy to collaborate on that type of stuff, which brings it to like, who's your team, right? And what assets do we have? What do we share? Like, what do I need to create? What do I need to create? How do we get the team together and who's on the team to do it? And most importantly, like, to get that team, what's my budget, right? How am I going to spend, And I kind of put these in the order, but, really it's going to vary a little bit because, this is a pyramid, not accidentally, because that marketing budget is at the bottom or the base of that pyramid for a reason, because that budget is going to support the rest of the marketing stuff you do. And it's going to influence like how the rest of that stuff looks. So your marketing budget may look different, may really determine your team and the assets you can have and they get created, and may impact your timeline, right? Big budget may get it done real quick, small budget may take a little longer, and the content as you get into the day can be affected by all that as well. But really, all these things kind of play together anyway, right? So this is what we're going to talk through, right? Let's talk about a written media content approach, all right? I'm going to give you guys this slide. At the end, I have a link to like PDF with all this stuff. So you can write it down as we talk through it, but I'm going to kind of go fairly quickly through it, just kind of let you know like what I want you to think about, how you can go about thinking about it, right? If you have a written media content approach where you're going to put together some kind of marketing campaign and you need a launch plan because your product or some kind of event related to your business or something is happening, let's say in a couple months, right? Or end of the summer, start of whatever. How do you get there, right? Essentially, this is some kind of like written media approach. We're going to have different types of media, and you're going to launch something on some specific day. There's activities and things you need to do before you launch. There's things you need to do when you do launch that day or that time or at that event or that whatever. And then after it, there's things you want to do as well, right? So it's kind of a 3-step approach, like the before, during, after. Fairly straightforward, right? So what might that look like if you're talking about some kind of written media campaign? Well, that could look like a couple of things, right? It could be some kind of blog or article, right? It could be some blogs for your website you're gonna be posting. You can have a series of them that you're gonna come out with. You're gonna have some kind of social media if you go with it, right? You know, and possibly even some other things besides just these could be video. Because the thing about it is, even if I'm just writing a blog, right, or just having some kind of article talking about why I'm great and my business is great and what I have to sell is so great, cool. But ideally, if you could talk about not just a blog, but generating an awareness campaign around it, what you want to do is have not just one, but a series of them, perhaps. Or you're talking about like over time, how many of these articles you want to have. At the end of the day, what's the theme of the articles you're writing about? Because what you're really trying to do is generate awareness about your product, your service, your event. And so one way you can do it is say blogging your articles. If I was doing that, one thing I want to know is I want to have key information about like what am I writing about? Like what's the title? Have I already written it? Is there a URL like for a Google Doc or something like that? Is there a tag? Like what am I, is it about I do like a lot of digital media stuff. Is it about like AI? Is it about like blockchain or Bitcoin? Is it about engineering? Is it about innovation? Is it about education? Like what are the tags that we associate with that? When do I want it out? Like when's the day I need to have this, approved or done, right? Is it June 2nd, this thing gonna be published? Then okay, when do I need to have it? Maybe it's just by June 1st. Maybe this thing isn't due till August, December, but I need to have all this stuff done a month ahead of time, or whatever. Who's gonna be writing the draft? Is it me? Is it somebody else? Who's the owner of it? And more importantly, who's the audience, right? This is the customer you could be going with. So, that's things I would kind of start with when I'm doing some kind of article, some kind of written thing. I'd also think about the type of social media considerations because most articles, especially anything digital or online or even some for print stuff, can you put together some minimum social stuff that can go virally share, right? Whether it's something, a minimum like image that can go onto Twitter or some kind of, or Instagram. Is it a short video that can go to TikTok or Facebook? Do you have just a quick tweet like, hey, check this out, here's a product, here's a link to it, These are things you think about ahead of time before you even the date or your event even happens. And then, if you have a large amount of people, you need approvals. Like, do I need to approve it? Is somebody else on my team going to approve it? Do I have a team to approve it? Is it just me? All these things are considered and things you may want to look at before you even start writing word one. But as you get used to it and as you kind of have, some kind of critical mass of this is what I know I want to do, having a template or just knowing, just kind of start thinking through these questions will help you to kind of set this up. So once you start writing that first one or you the second one or third, whatever else, you'll have all seven ahead of time. Because again, I've talked about a whole bunch of stuff. I ain't even got to the body, like what's even going in this article, right? I have talked about the content or who's writing it or where that content's going to be. Am I going to write it myself? Am I like by hand and have somebody type it for me? Am I going to type it? Am I going to type it on Google Docs and and then share it to somebody else to get it edited? Is somebody else going to type it and send it to me and I just approve it and they send it up? All these are things you want to consider just with something as simple as hey, let's write a blog or have a blog to advertise or promote this event or this thing I want to do. Right. Again, that's just the content side. Again, the calendar, right? What's the basic info for that kind of digital marketing, right? And I would recommend, even if you're not like a hardcore website, gonna have a blog or doing all the stuff, this is some like basic information you may want to like have in a spreadsheet or just to think about around your product, your customers, and things like that, right? Do you have a link in your calendar for different stuff going on or how people can get it with you? Do you have like some kind of digital document with just your ideas for things you may want to write about? And it could be an article. Because even if you're not doing any kind of writing, you're not doing any of that now, you may need to later, right? Having those kind of documents, those links for later can be super useful. Having like, a little spreadsheet like social media posts, like things you want to post. If you're not ready for it yet, just ideas for it. You can always pay somebody, hire somebody to get that done later, but just thinking through it. Like, so having some of these things just to kind of like in a little spreadsheet or in a little online document or a little folder can be super helpful to think through now what you may be doing later for your business. And then I would definitely say like per month, like have some kind of calendar per month, like a spreadsheet that talks through your upcoming year or prior to your launch or whatever you're doing. What type of stuff do you need to have written or done per that day. Like this again, this is just talking about like written articles. It could be other things, right? It could be business, it could be something else. But I think it's super important to kind of have those things, right? So in this one, this is like an example. On 5:30, the buyer stage is awareness. The audience type is like business owners. I have my first article out here ready to go. And then I'm the one who wrote it. And is it published yet? Yes or no? Right. For for 6-1, I have Thaisa, drafting something for me. That's for people who are more in the consideration phase, right? And there, it's more for a general knowledge. They just don't know, and so we're just kind of putting that out there. I need something for the 6-7. It's not started yet. I need to work on it. The third article, and it's going to focus on college students, right? So what? Where am I at in that process? But having these type of things can be super helpful in terms of kind of getting you ready to go. I definitely recommend, and I mentioned like that kind of collaborative folder. If you're not leveraging technology like Google Docs, like Microsoft 365, like the cloud, you definitely should be, because as you are a business owner now, especially your individual business owner, one of the things you have to figure out how to do sooner or later is how to scale, and how to scale efficiently and effectively so that it's not you. The best advice I got, one of the best things that I did, and one of my one of my homeboys, we both kind of in the startup stage of our business. So the good advice we got was like, hey, go ahead and create your org chart, right? That chart with like the CEO and vice president. Create an org chart for your entire company, everything you want to do, even if it's just you. Because we created a whole org chart, and when you started filling it in, you realized his name was on every position on the org chart. That is no bueno, right? And then eventually, as you start scaling, okay, let me put somebody else can do this part and do this part, and this part. And now he's a whole, he's a business, right? So it's a whole thing. But when you start, like, yeah, you are the CEO and the vice president and the secretary and the janitor and the whole thing, and you may be that, especially depending on where you at. Like you, sometimes I am the CEO. I am also the babysitter when wife has something to do. I am the child care. I am the janitor. I am the cook, the short of the cook, and that's all because I got to eat too, right? So I'm the caterer for my business or whatever at times, right? Or sometimes it's like, nah, I'm gonna hire somebody else gonna cater, somebody else gonna do this, somebody else gonna do that. This is the same thing happens with your business, where it's like, hey, to start with, you may be doing this entire marketing thing yourself, right? Or you may hire a whole marketing team. You may be doing all your social media. You may be hire somebody. You may be doing all your stuff. But either way, you want to take advantage of all the tools that are available to collaborate. If you're doing that, I highly recommend creating some kind of share folder for your marketing and really those marketing assets that just has the stuff in there that you would need. So here are the plans, press releases, old and new, any kind of email templates, articles, budgets. Put it all in one place, ideally so that you can get to it. And as you grow, somebody else can get to it who needs it, right? When you think about that team. And this is where you think about what will it take to help you accomplish that goal. When you talk about that team, if you build it, they will come, right? So for me, I told you, I suck at making the graphics look pretty, right? I do websites. I used to sell websites for years. I wasn't the one making it pretty. I couldn't even tell you what colors match, right? If it was up to me, I tell this all the time, all websites would be black and white with gray boxes because, hey, that's efficient. Why are we doing all other stuff? That's how I feel. My wife's a graphic designer. She's like, no, no, that is the opposite of what we need to be doing. So we get it all the time. That being said, it's one of those things where if I need to have that for a website or something else, you can hire out for that, right? And depending on where you're at in your business, I think that's the important part, especially early on. There's partnerships, and it's not always, it's cost something, but it don't always cost the same, right? So in this case, and I give an example, if Jackie's a graphic designer and I do super cool internet tech stuff, or I do web, or I do back end, or I do whatever I do, it may be something where, hey, we barter. I got to set up her website. She's gonna do my graphics, right? Cool. She's available Tuesday and Thursday to talk, and she can do evenings if there's some work I have her to do sometimes. So, just knowing just that little bit of information could be super useful if I got, hey, this is a project. I don't need it right away. I know she's available. It may take a little longer, but it won't cost me. I don't have $100 an hour for right now. So cool. I'll set up a website. I'll take me some time. And then while I'm doing that, she'll do this. And then by June, got time now, that may be all I need. But that's a legit way to kind of start putting together those teams that can really help you to grow your stuff and use that. I got a homeboy who has a company. He sells like parts or something. Another one of our mutual friends basically has a whole different company. It doesn't even do the same thing, but he happened to have a whole bunch of warehouse space. So he was like, hey man, let me just give me a discount, rent out some space in your office. And so now it's just convenient because he has a big warehouse space. So as this guy's selling parts or whatever he's doing, they have big packages and stuff coming in. Cool, this guy move packages all day. It's not a big deal for him, right? But it's a super convenient, kind of mutually beneficial thing for them because he gets to hire my boy's company to do stuff for him, and then he gets to keep his stuff there, and it's a win-win. So sometimes there's operation like that. Sometimes it may be different, right? If you might doing search engine optimization analysis, and I need time to help me out with that, I may need it at this time and on time and soon or whatever else. So it may be worth it, like, hey, I got this contract for $1,000. Let me pay Tom, for 2 hours of SEO instead of me doing it. For that $200, I can make 1,000. I can make 800. That's a win. That's worth it, right? And so depending on what it is, what makes sense, you do that. Sometimes it could be the opposite. I may have to you do this. I let hey Tom go ahead and hook it up. He may need to be 8 hours on it. I may have to pay him $800. I make 200. But if I don't have to do anything physically, that's still $200 I wouldn't have had if I had to physically do it myself, especially if I'm just busy and it'll waste time anyway. So thinking through that balance, what makes sense, how much profit is enough profit? Do I need to make $800 from this deal? Can I just make 200? And what that looks like, that's a very important part of like business, putting together a team. And that's just for the marketing side. But all that being said, thinking through that. And then of course, tracking, right? Because I'm the numbers guy, right? So how do you track all that stuff to make sure it's working, right? And see how much your marketing cost should be, what it could be, how do you do it, right? A lot of acronyms, because I've been throwing them at you all day, so why not keep going, right? What are the KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, in case you don't know those, right? What's your projected budget? This is how much I think it'll cost for marketing, is what it actually costs, right? What's my ROI, right? What is my return on investment? If I put in this much money for marketing, what I get in return? How am I tracking the effort, et cetera, right? What are the types of spending you can do in the marketing game, right? There's digital ads. We talked about this advertising, you pay for it, right? So I can do paid social media. I can do paid searching. I can use regular good old commercials, all that kind of stuff. I may have to pay for some free stuff I got to put out, but I still got to pay to get it designed, or I got to pay to get the video done, or I got to pay an agency or consultants or something, right? Because I may need an expert to do XYZ for me, and it may be worth it's going to give me that. I may have to buy specialized software, some kind of tool, but all those are costs that can add up at the end of the day. And you probably want to track it and make sure that what you're putting out equals to what you get in. It really is, you're getting back more than you're putting out there, right? And then understanding particularly the type of campaign you want, right? There's just a basic kind of social media, like, hey, on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever. Is it an email marketing campaign? Because you curated a list of enough people that if 2% of them buy something from you, you're a millionaire, right? Is that what it is? Is it a planned viral, right? People always say, I want to go viral. Some of that is purely accidental. Some of that is strategically planned to go different levels of viral, depending on what you're trying to do. And there's ways to do that, right? But how do you do it, and how do you plan a campaign around doing that? And those are all kind of the questions for that, right? So that being said, I think I'm 3 minutes over, but I do want to leave you with this, right? One, make sure you know your business inside and out, right? Ask, if you do nothing else, ask these fundamental questions. Who are you? What do you do? And how can you do whatever you do best, right? If you do that and just be the best you that you can be, I think you're going to be a winner. And I think that one of my favorite quotes is by Pablo Picasso. And he said, when I was a child, my mother said to me, if you become a soldier, you'll be a general. If you become a monk, you'll end up as the Pope. Instead, I became a painter and I wound up as Picasso. And that's kind of a drop the mic moment. So therefore, I will leave you with that. I will drop the mic. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. I don't know how much time we have left. I know it's probably time we're breaking some other stuff. Before I do go, and I will send you these links, I do have a couple of links to like some of the things we talked about. So that kind of marketing guide that's here. I'll put these links in the chat. And there's just some other general like marketing tips and like tools and stuff that you guys can use. I'll make sure I put all these links in the chat and stuff. But for now, that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any questions or anything, I'm here. But thank you for your time and attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Prewitt. That was excellent. That covered so much great information and really was wonderful. I want to give a little bit of time, like the next 15 minutes, to any questions that you guys had. There was such a wide variety of information that was presented here, and it took a lot of the things that you've already learned, but it expanded on them in a lot of ways, and it was incredibly valuable. I agree with that, Ashley. So does anyone have questions for Dr. Prewitt? Anything you?
Elizabeth, I guess.
Yeah. I have a question. You were talking about the marketing and
Mhm.
kind of getting someone else, being in a position to where if this is not your thing, you can get somebody else to do it. What are some of the things, like if we're looking to outsource something like marketing, what are some of the things we need to look for in those companies or entrepreneurs that are offering their services to come in and work with us, whether it's for our own business stuff or like our clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's twofold, right? Because it's always like a challenge, right? Because I think the interesting part about your question about what you're saying is, you know, in that scenario, now you are the customer, right? So you are the one who is in that consideration, use whatever else. So, but I think that the cool thing about like kind of going through this is you kind of have a superpower because you're doing it backwards. So literally, you can kind of, especially if you're looking at who can help you in marketing, you can kind of see like, hey, what they marketing look like. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and it's a, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's kind of like I always compare it to like like the barber, you go to the barber shop, the guy who's really, really good, that's your favorite barber, but his hair always look a hot mess, right? Because he cuts hair all day, and or the lady, you lady, you get your hair done, your girl, she hook your braids up, but hers always look real crazy because she be like, I'm tired, I don't feel like braid my own stuff. It happens, right? And so it's challenging because on the one hand, you want to, you look at like what have they done before, not necessarily for their site, because they might be like, I ain't got a website, but every else site is tight, right? Um, I I would say, step one is put yourself firmly in that customer situation. Like, what is it that you need? And kind of understand the same way I asked this question, understand yourself. Like, I need this. Like for me, I know what I can do really well. Like I can think through the back end. I don't really need the SEO, I don't need to do the technical analysis stuff, whatever else. But I'm not drawing nothing. You know what I'm saying? I don't care about the colors. So if that's what you can do well, I know that's the specific thing that I know I need. So I'm gonna go toward that, right? Somebody who does that, but really focus on other stuff, I'm gonna need all other stuff. The other thing is depending on where you're at, sometimes, price may be a factor, but there's even ways around that, right? Even when I've used like, services like, Fiverr or some services where it's like a cheaper, thing, doesn't necessarily mean, bad quality. And sometimes there's options where you can like, I'll try them out. So even if somebody has like if they're on Fiverr or one of these other sites to advertise their stuff, I may try to give them a sample project that's not, doesn't break the bank. Like, okay, I could do this myself. Like, okay, I can find a template and do a basic thing if I need to, but I know how to use Canva. I don't like it, but I know how to use Canva. It's there, it exists, right? I know I can make this and it's at least as good. Let me see if I pay them, I give them $5, I give them a little small piece of, or let them do this test project. What do they come back with? And sometimes if you can, what I would advise people to do when possible is see, can you get to, see a sample at work or give them like some sample projects, right? Like I know in the past I've had people do like different types of services for me, whether it's like, hey, build this marketing thing or build this little snippet, do this audio thing or whatever. I'll find like 5 people on Fiverr, right? So that's what, $25 max for $5 things. Out of those, which one has the best quality? Out of the top 3 or top 2, okay, I'll buy, a $10 or $20 gig from them for the next thing I need. Because even if it's not great, I can probably still use some of it if it's just a basic thing. Then I'll test them out or something. And as I become more confident in what they've showed me and what they've done as the smaller projects, I get more and more comfortable giving them larger projects. So I would say sometimes you got to test the waters, talk to people, or try to get quality recommendations from somebody else you see doing it well. If you see somebody else who has a dope website, or you go to one of these classes and somebody's like, oh, I like what they say, I like what they did, reach out to them or reach out to somebody else who has a really good marketing game that seems strong and be like, hey, who do you use? What do you do? Where would you go for it? And go from there. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also add on there, if it's something like marketing, make sure that it's something that aligns with your brand, whether they're consistently in a specific style, or if that's the style that aligns with your brand, or if they're really good at matching styles of different brands. So if they know how to really read a client and then produce something that matches their brand, that's a really important skill too. So one of those two, if you're looking for visual work. All right. And I think, Dr. Prewitt, I love that advice about, that's what I do too, with the test them with a small project and see what they come out with, and then maybe up it after that.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, what other questions do we have? Did anyone have any questions? Oh, Scott, go
So,
ahead.
yeah, no, I did have a question. So when I reached out to a couple of different marketing individuals, I guess this is kind of based off of Elizabeth's question. I found like when I asked them like, oh, this is the potential name for my food brand or food product, they automatically found a website to be able to like see if other brands had the exact same name or under the same like marketing technique as
Yeah.
what I was potentially proposing. Do you know of a way that we could have access to something like that so we can Google search or kind of play with different creative ideas? Or is that through some sort of paywall that we would have to go through?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm almost positive there's a paywall you can go through that will always charge you for service and stuff like that. A lot of it honestly is Google. So I know like if you just Google like website or domain names or brand things, whatever, because a lot of times when they go to those sites just find out who else has that brand, they're basically just looking up and I don't necessarily look up for like the full, if somebody has those colors and the full brand thing, right? But a lot of times you can look up and see like, hey, is anybody else using the same like name, right? So if you have
Yeah.
a name for your product, a lot of times they're gonna try to have consistency across the brand, meaning the same name for the social media, for the Instagram, for the website, whatever else. There are definitively like sites and websites you can go to look up like those type of names and stuff, right? So I'm trying to think of one. I know there's one called actually let's say that do I have a into one? Y'all showing myself. Yeah, I mean there if you just want to like check the name of a site and see does it exist. Let me see, does this link may work. Literally just Google name checker, right? I think this is yeah. That's one, right? And all that does is if you type in a name of some website, it'll just check and see where does it exist and who has that, or if somebody has it on all the different things. Like is there a .com, a .org, or .YouTube, whatever else, right? That's one. I don't even think that's the best one or a super good one, but there's a lot of other ones like that. So you just type in name check on Google or check names on Google or check brand or whatever. Probably see what the top 3 things that come up, and you can probably kind of find that. But I think, and again, I don't know if this one's super great. The link I just put in there, like in terms of like looking at the entire brand, because when you just talk about brand, there's a whole thing behind that, right? In terms of like what colors go, what colors, and
Yeah.
font size and all that. Like I don't. It's not gonna. This site in particular isn't gonna tell you all that. There may be some sites that do, but a good starting point is at least like, hey, if somebody already have that website or already have that Instagram, or already have that handle, that can probably get you started at least. So
Okay.
good luck.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And Skylar, I think knowing your personality, you might be tempted to do this, although it's a little cumbersome. You can also check the USPTO patent office.
I do have that website up on my laptop currently.
And yeah, I mean, it is cumbersome. I would say that for that, my understanding is that if you can cause market confusion in the name, so for instance, even if it just sounds the same, if it's the same type of product with a similar name, and it can cause confusion, that's where you
Yeah. I was just asking because like the person that I went to and asked for, he like showed me the website for like a split second where he was able to just type it in like the name that I proposed. And he was like, yep, there's already something else within the food industry because that was like what the category is under. Because it's also, I didn't know this, but apparently it's even broken up under like different types of products. So if I were to be providing some sort of like toothpaste brand, it could potentially also be the same name as like a chip company because they're not competitive. And I was like, I didn't know that. So
Yep. Yeah. And I don't know, we're going to have a legal expert and she or he might get more into some IP stuff about, you know, naming, and it's definitely a legal question as well. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Prewitt, for that advice.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say about from that aspect is the naming can be super important, super useful because when you talk about that, right, it's the naming, it's the brand, but it's also, you know, back to the other stuff we're talking about, it's a product, right? Because IP is valuable, right? Because if you get to a point where once you can protect your IP and you have it the right way, I'm sure legal experts go into way more detail about it. That's something else you can sell or do something with, even if it just put that name on the shirt and that font and that logo in that right way. Now you have a full-on product line just in t-shirts that you didn't have before, even if you don't do t-shirts, right? You know, so it's increasingly important. I would say, you know, yeah, when legal expert comes, whatever else, looking into that, but also thinking of your brand as not only a marketing tool, but also as a product can be super beneficial depending on where you're at. I think I saw another question. So.
Elizabeth.
That was me.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Quick question. I know we touched on sales in this, and so like everybody else knows, I already have a business, but when it comes to sales, you know, I see a lot more sales on like social media and things like that. Do you have any, or do you know any other platforms like outside of social media, or just kind of other ways that we could do the selling? I mean, I know like the cold calls, which I'm not good at those, so I don't do them, but like, just like other avenues of it, because I know, like, I feel like sales and marketing sometimes go hand in hand, especially if you're on social media, that you are at the same time advertising your business, but selling it at the same time. But I agree with some people that are like, you need to have something offline, like, but what is that offline is what people never tell us. So just kind of like, do you have any tips or any starting points for what that offline sales could look like?
Yeah, I do actually. There's a couple of different options for you in terms of like how your offline sales or whatever could do, because, and I think, you know, one thing to remember is when we talk about sales or offline sales or how we're going to sell online and offline, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? It's not necessarily saying that you can sell exclusively through like a store, right? Or through some kind of online store, where like Shopify, I think I have a link to that, or some other things, or on, you know, whatever. You can also just send somebody an invoice, right? Or you know, and have them pay directly through PayPal or Zelle or whatever. I think in terms of like the online versus offline, whatever else, it depends on what you're using. Like, so you mentioned like you're not good at like having those sales calls. That may be okay, because what you may be super good at, what you may decide to do is have, instead of the sales calls, you know, have somebody else do that selling for you, right? Someone else can be responsible and do those sales calls, and or you may get a whole team of folks who do the sales calling on your behalf, right? You can even like go to different websites and different things where they will come and they will you basically hook up those they'll have a team of folks that you basically hire to make sales calls on your behalf. So it's still getting done, but you don't have to necessarily do it yourself, which can also be a big win, right? So, you know, all of those are like different ways. I think, you know, when it comes to in person, there's some of it is just like, you know, depending on what you're selling will definitely impact whether or not the I guess the best way to go about trying to make the sale happen, right? So if you have a product that can easily be sold like in with very minimal effort, right? Like you're selling, you know, people say widgets, right? But you have like some physical thing, you can like a t-shirt where you can put it online or design it, you know, once, and somebody can print out and sell over and over again. You don't have to go and sell each t-shirt individually in person, because you ideally get it on a website or have a contract, whatever else. Folks buy a big box of them and get your money, right? If you have something that's like particularly like your services or your consulting, that's a little more a longer, usually like product cycle, right? Where you have to take a little longer to kind of go and make that happen. But also you may have higher margins, right? Like a t-shirt, well, hopefully you got your pricing right. Pricing can think of the whole thing. More, I would imagine that a t-shirt costs less than your hourly rate for consulting. hopefully. If it doesn't, we need to talk about this whole other conversation again. But if that is the case, which cross fingers, we're hoping so, what that means is you need to like change and be very cognizant of how your sales cycle works, right? So if it's a low margins, but you're selling a lot of volume of it, you don't want to have a lot of high touch sales where you got to talk to them in person, whatever else. You're wasting time, you're not doing that right. If it's a more super high touch business, but you can charge a premium for it, it's okay to have a longer sales cycle as long as you get enough money to do it. So if you're taking 6 months to sell one t-shirt, that's bad business. If you're taking 3 to 6 months to sell a product that can pay you for the next 2 years, that may be good business. But all of that depends on what you're selling, how you're selling it, and what your pricing structure is to really determine that. And that's where some of that, like the sales operations comes into play, and why I say so much of this stuff overlaps, because your financial management and knowing your numbers will tell you what type of sales makes sense. Because it may make sense to actually spend a little bit of money to have a whole team that goes and sells your stuff, whether you get them online or they from somewhere else. Where they're, even if you don't like calling people, somebody, you pay them, they'll do it for you. And that may make sense if you have a product priced at the right sale, or whatever you're selling is priced in such a way that you can benefit from it. So even if you have 10 people calling for you, as long as 2 of them sell one thing, if that one thing is priced to the point where it's worth it, do it. If it's not, don't do it. So it's kind of all connected like that. Hope that answered your question.
So, I'm just going to add a little bit more to that. I wanted to put in here it's a link to HubSpot article on marketing types, and it's like word of mouth marketing, inbound marketing. There's all different types. It might spur some thoughts for you. But I personally, I have a business consulting business, and I don't have social media. You will not find me on social media. So everyone has a different way of doing business. I do more relationship marketing. And it's things like I'll go to a workshop and I'll be there maybe half a day, but I get to know the people in the workshop. I know that they're my target customers. And by the end, I've left with like 5 or 6 leads at the end of the day. And I haven't really actively promoted myself. I've just been there and I've been knowledgeable and I've gotten to know people and been someone that they might want to work with. So and for you, Elizabeth, I feel like your personality is so strong. I can totally see you pulling off something like that, where you go to a workshop and you meet people who are in your target group, because a bunch of people wanting to make nonprofits. So just some ideas for you.
I do well in person, but COVID cut a lot of that. So that really put a damper on me. So then that left me to really trying to figure out the sales outside of that. So I really did like most people and kind of clung to social media, which has been okay, but I want to back off of it because it's too much noise on social media. And too much that you can get lost in, too much misinformation that just kind of makes me upset anyway. So I do the in-person marketing, but I'm like, there's got to be more to that, because I'm only one person. I can only be in so many places, but then I still have work that I need to do for my clients too. So I can't be everywhere all the time. So I'm like, there's got to be another medium that I can tap into that maybe I'm just not aware of, or maybe I know about it, but don't realize it's as easy to tap into as it is.
So Ashley, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Prewitt.
No, I was gonna say what I would recommend. So one, Ashley, I see you, and I but I wanted to address this because so to your point, right? I've been the same way. So when I first started, especially doing like consulting, I was the same. A lot of my initial marketing was very much word of mouth. So going to a conference, going to a conference for a week, it may be worth it. I may go out there, I may come back with maybe 1-2 leads after spending there for a week, whatever else. But if that 1 or 2 leads end up being like a 6-figure, job, whatever else, then worth it, right? So that's why I was so specific on like pricing and stuff, whatever. But the other thing I would say, especially if you know for a fact you're better in person, and you got a lot of leads from there, and then now how do you switch that to digital? This is where I think that thinking outside the box comes in, because there are a lot of digital conferences, right? If you feel comfortable like speaking like this, like I'm looking at your background, what I'm saying, you have the life consulting, you got that, whatever else, cool. You could talk and do one of these and do some presentations for folks online, and not necessarily all social media are having like link or just be there all the time. But even just, developing your own content, whether it's written, whether it's media, whether it's videos of you talking and being that, establishing yourself as an expert, that actually can be as useful because you still get the, you're not face to face. You get the benefit of people seeing your knowledge and seeing you speak and seeing what you're talking about. You get the benefit of being able to kind of create your own content that, as we talk about some of this marketing, you can do other stuff later with it if you need to. But you also get to like build your brand from talking about it, being knowledgeable about it, and potentially even online build some relationships. Like I've done like podcasts and built relationships that turn into business later, just from like talking to people that are being known for this stuff. Like people who saw me, even if I never physically met them, but we made money together, right? And it's just from knowing somebody who knows somebody. So you can still do some of those same things even if you're not. So I hope I would say I definitely understand the noise of social media because I know how to write all the algorithms, do all the stuff. I don't necessarily like social media all the time, but I also understand that there's ways you can still use technology to leverage, even if you like in person better. And I get that. Do you know of any? So Ashley, I see this question. Do you know of any reputable marketing companies to call and connect me potential donors for nonprofits? So Ashley, I think that's a kind of like the two. I think there's two questions there, two things I'm seeing, right? So one, there's the marketing side, like just marketing companies who are reputable. I think that's like one. And then connecting you to donors for nonprofits, that's I think a separate one, right? Some of those kind of go together because if you market yourself right, then ideally donors will come to you, or if you go into donors to get them to do for nonprofits, because there's a difference sometimes between your customer and your audience, right? Or yeah, because particularly when you talk about nonprofits and sometimes even other regular businesses as well as nonprofits, who you're serving isn't necessarily who's paying you, right? And you have to make sure you're addressing the needs of both those sectors, which makes it an interesting layer to it, right? It's not quite B2B, like business to business. It's not quite business to consumer or direct sales. It's you're serving over here, but you're getting paid over here. And how do you put those together? There's a couple ways to look at that. So one, there's marketing, but it's also branding. And we can potentially talk more about like particularly what you need, because I think the thing is a lot of times we use the term like marketing kind of loosely, but they're even like subsegments and it all kind of fits under there, right? So there's branding agencies and people who just do like brand and that type of thing. There's PR agencies who just do public relations and get you closer, let you know about other stuff. There's the technical side of just like these lists or aggregators that just put together information about donors and where you can get that. There's even software that if you use that for your nonprofit collection, it may actually be able to help you aggregate or get the funding or help you with fundraising campaigns. And that, so there's a software side, there's the people side, the public relations side, all those things when you talk about marketing, but particularly when you're trying to get to potential donors. I think really what I would look at is kind of the opposite and not just the narrow kind of definition kind of marketing per se, but really speak more to or look more at like, what is it, because I don't know, your company or whatever else, but like, what is it particularly for your nonprofit? It's still like those internal questions, like who are you and what do you want to do, right? Because your question for that external question, your customers are going to be a little different because who do you serve is going to be this demographic, but that's not necessarily going to be who's paying you. And, even a not-for-profit business is still a business. So, and it's one of those things, in order for you to do your mission well, you still have to be able to do your mission well and get paid and whatever else. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, the reason I kind of craft and talk about business in this way is because it's one of those things where, purpose really leads all. Like your purpose, understanding and establishing that why, that should lead and guide whatever you're doing. And what happens is purpose is kind of at the top, of it. Those interconnections are like that second middle piece, and then those that how and those pieces and that what you're doing is that third piece, but they're all connected because not for nothing, if your purpose gets jacked up, then everything else really kind of falls apart, gets out of the way, right? I don't say I pick on churches, right? But I think churches are a really good example of how it can go, left to right, right? If your purpose as a church is to save souls, and that's what you're doing, then that should and can dictate a lot of the things you do. And even if you're not trying to, you get off track from that quite a bit if you're not, stuck to that and whatever else. Because your purpose is supposed to be to save souls, but yet, the preacher out here, his purpose is to get a Bentley. You'll notice that real quick with what's actually going on. And sometimes it's not even as bad as you would think, right? Like there's actively, those bad actors who are actively trying to do the wrong thing. But it could be something as simple as your church, and you're trying to save souls, but you took out that bad bank loan or did whatever else. So now, even though your purpose in theory espoused, what you're saying is we're out here to save souls. In actuality, you're out here trying to pay Bank of America that loan you took out because you didn't have a good plan for how to make the money back to pay for this building fund that you've been building since 1957. So, it's one of those things. And again, I'm saying it's kind of but it's a real thing that happens if you don't have that kind of purpose lined up. So the best way to really kind of line up potential donors for your nonprofit and that is, it may be marketing. I don't know. I have to kind of dig a little into what you're doing, but really it's about like really establishing that why and speaking directly to who you're targeting or why you exist, what you want to do. Because if you can show and say that really well, that can help to establish your brand, where then it may be you need a brand director or not even just a regular marketing firm, but like a specific like PR firm that can get you close to donors who can see you doing this good work, and then they can help you build a plan to get that. So actually, I hope I answered your question, but I think, but it's kind of a hard.
You did. So,
okay.
So what I do, I actually, it's a nonprofit, but it's also a childcare center that runs up under the nonprofit. So I'm trying to, when I heard you mention there are marketing companies that will actually do the calls if you don't want to make the calls.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of different programs that I want to get started, like for cognitive development, for large and fine motor skills in the different domains of what a child actually needs to grow and to stimulate both sides of the brain. But sometimes I just don't have the time to make those calls for the donors, because it may be just the average person, or like you said, a list that someone needs to go through to tell them the type of work and the services that we provide. And I'm just trying to see if there is an easier way, or if I'm just gonna have to dig in and get it done.
Well, I think so. So to your point, and this is where I say sometimes you need to figure out, who you want to pay or what you want to spend time for, really establishing that why, right? The good thing with you is you're probably better than like, sadly, 80 or 70% of nonprofits folks. You have a clearly established vision for why and what you want to do. Super important, right? And you'd be surprised if folks don't have that. You may, it's really one of the things, where's the most bang for your buck, right? Because it may be that you need a marketing care. You may just need some just basic consulting or a grant writer or whatever, because we're not for nothing. You clearly know what you want to do. You say you're partnered with a firm already does some childcare or something. Put it like this, most of the most quote unquote profitable nonprofits make a huge profit, or they have something. Let's be clear. Girl Scouts been selling them cookies for a long time. They ain't losing money on them. Please believe, when they catch you, they're gonna get you, because in Girl Scouts, you bought them cookies, and if you bought your Thin Mints, you know what I'm saying, you bought your little shortbreads, it's real out here, you know what I'm saying? And that's just facts. And not for nothing, if you look at like a huge nonprofit, the Catholic Church, they make tons of money in real estate and other things. Even like a lot of other, there are a lot of other companies who actually, as a nonprofit, really have some kind of like, I would say even side hustle or whatever else, because they're a nonprofit or some foundation that's funded by something else. So it may be that it's not so much a marketing company you need. You may need a good grant writer, or you may need a good consultant who can just get you some visual donors on whatever else, right? It may be that you need to, one great place is, you guys are already affiliated with UF, whatever else. Most universities, I know UF does it in their business school. I know USF does it in business school. A lot of the public universities do it. University of Tampa and other places, is they have marketing students who will essentially, for a fee, $10,000 or whatever else to a marketing to most business departments. I'd say it's around 10, and maybe some other price point, whatever else. They can have their marketing student, their MBAs, the new, fresh, hot, young MBAs who are figuring out all this stuff, put together marketing campaigns and plans for you. A lot of times, particularly if you're a nonprofit or if you affiliate with a university, I would check into this. I don't know. If you're a nonprofit, they may do it for free as part of their capstone or as part of their class or whatever else. So maybe there's some business students sitting around somewhere who are like, hey, we can put together a marketing plan for you as part of our MBA training or our capstone project or whatever else. Or maybe the university has something like that. I don't know. That's worth checking into. But these are the things. So all that being said, I would say I would have to have a deeper conversation to find out like what you may need, because you may need consulting that could, more than just a marketing thing, or just some, find the right person who can do some of those things. So instead of you calling yourself, maybe find somebody who can write a grant to help the cognitive development stuff, because that's, I don't know.
Gotcha.
But
Thank
I hope
you.
that helps. Yeah.
It does, because I'm just trying to get direction. Like, for instance, I have we're growing in the population of ADHD and ADD and autism. So there are other creative arts that I want to pull in to be able to counteract some of the things that they're stimulated or triggered by in a regular setting. Like even Taekwondo, that's something even that works, that helps with the self-control piece. And, it's just different things that I want to bring in like that. I honestly tried grant writers. I write grants myself, but it's so time consuming, and it's just almost an uphill battle when you're against several hundred other individuals who may need the same funds that you need for their project. Yeah. So it's like very time consuming to not really have that,
You may do better looking into partnerships with particular organizations. You already said you're with the one, the Chakra Center. There may be other partnerships, like whether it's people who are doing social emotional learning, other like a karate gym or other places, like because I've done various projects where I worked in like social emotional learning, where I worked with like say dojos, projects, whatever else that needed like some tech aspect. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, they may need a website, they may be doing this program for the summer in the summer school, but the real kind of claim to fame or unique thing happened where this computer program, it's after school program, partnered with this church or partnered with this other thing or partnered with university to do something, an existing grant or something they're already doing, to basically find a pathway to write a paper or do this cool thing or do this other thing that led to funding down the road, or led to a partnership that's mutually beneficial, where it's like, hey, we already have this, or have these resources, have these things that can help you be set up to get this, to stand out from that crowd that's already doing the grant writing, or just to, again, help with that marketing and sales. Remember I said with the sales kind of arm, there are various ways. You could be direct to customer, right? That's where you maybe like directly call in potential donors. You could be indirectly, right, where you have a marketing campaign where the donors find you. Or it could be some partnership where the type of people who would want to pay are already paying for this other thing. And it's like, hey, we already have money for something, and what you have would be cool for that. So let's partner together. So it just really depends on, again, where you're at and kind of what are the most prevalent resources around you. I would, if I were you, I would definitely look into, because you have looking like UF and kind of talk through with the program director, whatever else, about like, what are other resources in your area at UF, or even just in the Gainesville area, just in Florida, that kind of can help with some of that, right? Because again, if you can get some students where they have like existing programs that can help your nonprofit or help your thing to put that together, that may be the move.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. This has been wonderful. RJ, were you coming to give us a time check?
No, yeah, I was actually going to chime in the last few minutes that we have, but you can go ahead. I can say my final thoughts at the end.
Yeah, I wanted to just
go now.
Dr. Prewitt, I think we're going to do a quick just introduction of the Lean Canvas and have them just see it, because that's their activity for this week. So you can feel free to stick around if you want to, or whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you so much for your time and all the wonderful information. Great.
All right, you guys have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we have a bunch of slides that we're not going to actually do tonight because we're running low on time. So I want to introduce the idea of the business canvas. And what it really does is it takes a lot of these things that we've been talking about and it ties it all together. And the stronger the pieces work together, the stronger the business model. So we're going to start with this. You can see there's different boxes, and you actually have a Word version of this that's a blank. So you can start putting in the information in there. And like, Elizabeth, the ideas that you got tonight, you're going to be wanting to stick those into some of the boxes, and everyone's going to have things that they've learned tonight and thought about tonight that are going to go into some of these boxes. So I'm going to tell you kind of where to start and how to navigate it. And if we have time, we might do some examples. So, okay, so the first box is value proposition. So this is, you know, we talked about this. What's the problem? This is something that we spent a lot of time on. So what's the customer's problem that we're trying to solve, and which customer needs are we solving? So this should really be, what value are you bringing to the customer? And we have a whole session planned on this one box coming up for you. But I just wanted to say that this is the starting point, and you guys have all kind of, you dug into this previously. And that's going to relate to the second box, which is, who are your customers? So you're going to have, if you have maybe two customer segments, you might have two different value propositions that relate to each customer segment, but these should be strongly tied to each other. So that value proposition needs to be what you're doing for these customers, right? So for whom are we creating value? Who are our most important customers? So you're going to fill that in. Then 3 is the channels. And this kind of hangs people up sometime. This is the way that you're going to reach people. So it can be like email, web, social media, cold calls, some of those different things that we were talking about today. But what is the avenue with which you will contact your customers and reach them? And then for customer relationships, what type of relationships does each of our customer segments expect us to establish? So, you know, put some information about the customer relationship in this box. And then key activities. These are the tasks. Remember when we had you do that empathy map and the persona, and we had you say what task they're trying to accomplish? This is exactly, these are kind of the task and the key activities that you're helping them with. So what key activities do our value propositions require? So we're going to fill in that box, the key activities that you're busy doing as a business, but that relate to your customer's task as well. So what's helping your customers and what are you doing as a business? Key resources. This is really important. What is critical to your company? You know, if Skylar has a gum that's made of plastics, I know it's not made of plastics, but to protect what it is made of, I'm going to go ahead and say plastics, but say it is made of plastics, and then suddenly she can't find plastic anymore. What's going to happen to her business? It's going to be, yeah, that's right, Skylar, down the tubes. So you've got to think about those critical things for you, the key resources that really make your company tick. Likewise, who are your key partners? Who is it really important to in suppliers? What do you need? So, you know, also with key resources, think about like websites, think about your delivery mechanisms, think about the pieces that have to be in place, or else your company is gonna flop. And for key partners, think about the people and the organizations that you have to work with. That you know, so this could be vendors, this could be, you know, different, yeah, like people who, like partners who say you are working with say you're Ashley, and 80% of your business is coming from a local pediatrician who recommends you all the time. And this is like so critical for your business because she's sending all these little kids and their families to your childcare. And I know that's not true, Ashley. I'm just a random example. That would be a key partner. It's really important to have that person listed in here. And then we start to get into kind of the money side of things. What are the revenue streams? What are the different ways in which money is coming into your business? So really quickly, I want you guys to think of, and I mentioned this company before, Keurig, the coffee company. Who's familiar with Keurig? Everybody? What are their revenue streams? What do they sell that brings them money?
Coffee cups,
Coffee cups.
machines.
Machines.
Pods,
What was that?
small coffee pods that go into their machines.
Yep. So you have the pods as one revenue stream and the coffee machines as another. Now, maybe they even have service contracts for like, you know, I don't know, for a car dealership that has a big old Keurig machine. That would be like the service contract might be another revenue stream. So also, if you think about like razor blades and like for shaving, not the other kind of razor blades, like Gillette, for instance, what are their revenue streams?
Shaving cream.
Shaving cream.
I was gonna say the razors, they have the cream. That's all I can think of though.
Talk to me about the razors. Do you
They
always?
they separate
razor?
them in two parts. You can get like just the pack of the razors and not the handle, or like the inclusion of the handle.
Yep. So you can do kind of very similar things or things that work really well together, but diversify your revenue. So you have different revenue streams coming in. So those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to think about in this section is what are the different revenue streams? You know, Elizabeth, for you have you broke down the different customer types and what their needs might be and which products they would go after. So those different product categories, those might be your different revenue streams. So, and then you have cost structure. What are the costs? Please, please, please don't say that it doesn't cost anything. It's a lie. If it costs your time, you need to put in your time. If it costs, you know, all the different things, what does it cost to get a customer to your website? Think about those conversations that you're having, all the little things. If you're Diana, if you're driving, like what are the different costs if you're driving to your people, the cost of that driving time, the cost of the gas, all the pieces of your cost, throw them in this section. And so hopefully by the end, we will have this beautiful little picture of your business, of all these different aspects of your business and how they tie together. And like I said, the more that they relate to each other and strengthen each other, the stronger your business is. So I'm going to pause really quickly and see if there's questions about this.
So I have a question with section 6 and 7, key partners and key resources. I feel like for me, sometimes that might cross over. Would it be something that if I had two and one thing in both areas, would that be okay?
Yeah, I would say, I do think it's okay. I would stick more to your key partners being those key relationships and things like that. And then the key resources being like the website or the materials or the different things like that are necessary for your business.
Okay.
Like if you have training materials or those sorts of pieces. But yeah, things can be in both. I would say
So key partners would be more of the who, and your key resources would be more of the what.
Yep.
So they can be the same, but they'll have different functions.
Okay, because I asked because like literally my web designer it also makes referrals. So it's like while they provide the resource, which is my web design, they also have over time become like a key partner because literally they will connect me with anybody that says anything about nonprofits. So that's why I'm like, would I be able to kind of have both in the same because of what I do? So anyway, that was my example.
Yeah, no, and you might have stuff like that. Some of my best partners are actually people who have been or are clients. And I know that some of the people that I work with that I'm their client. I'm one of their best partners too, because I'm referring them all the time. So sometimes things can go in multiple categories. The big thing is to think about this really thoroughly and to really make sure that you have something unique in each one of the boxes and really well thought out in each of the boxes. RJ, did you have a thought on that too? I see
Yeah,
you're
no. Oh, no. I mean, you said it. Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to do this each week after the speaker, because as you can see, the speakers have ideas for you and little nuggets of information that are really wonderful at sparking ideas and getting you to think through it more and more. And so you will go through and every week you're going to submit this. You're going to just improve it though, as we go. And this is your business model. And so you will be doing this over and over and getting a stronger and stronger business model. Shona, I see you have your hand up.
I do. I wanted to add something to
Yeah.
respond to Elizabeth's question. So one way to think about it when you're filling out this business model canvas, resources and partners. So your website is a resource and you're going to need that resource no matter who it is. So your particular person that you're working with, the resource isn't the person, the resource is the thing they're providing. What are they producing for you? That's the resource. It's the website. The reason why I'm saying that is because people come and go, vendors come and go. The people who actually do the thing or provide the thing come and go, but think in terms of how to make a distinction between a resource and a partner. Think of the thing itself. You need a website. And if you consider it important to your business model, like the way business comes to you is through referrals, then what you would put under partners is something like referral partners. Like you don't have to list a specific person or vendor. Like it's the fact that you rely on referrals is a critical partnership that drives your success. Does that make sense?
And Elizabeth, even those referrals would probably go into channels. Because if referrals as a category is one of the channels in which people get information about you and learn about you, that might be where it belongs. But Shona, absolutely, and that I think built on RJ's point of the key partners is really kind of the who, and the key resources is the what. So we will be working through this. I'm going to just really quickly, I'm going to stop sharing this one and then I'm going to pull up, I don't know. Are there any other questions about it? I was going to pull up a lemonade stand one. Do you guys want to see another example, like an example of it filled out? Or we're going to post some on the lesson webpage for you all. Would it be helpful to see some examples right now? Or would you rather just take a few minutes and try your hand at it, and then you can ask questions as you encounter them? Yeah, RJ.
So I know that you have that assignment, but I kind of wanted to give everyone some concrete resources. This is kind of going back into Dr. Prewitt's presentation. And so Skylar asked about finding ways to verify some of the trademarks that she has and stuff like that. So Sunbiz, I'm not sure. I wasn't really clear if you were trying to see just for your marketing or for your business name, but sunbiz.org for Florida is what you can type in to see if a business name is already taken. Business-wise, for marketing trademarks, USPTO is your best bet because it's more national. And if someone, whether, let's just say caffeinated gum is it's a business's name, if they don't have that business trademarked with USPTO or with the state, it's still up for grabs that you can take. If, let's just say it was just a super popular brand and you wanted to take it, it is up for grabs for you to take. The only limitation or the setback to that you want to be careful about is if that brand gets in trouble for whatever case, that brand can ultimately affect you in the long run. So, that's the reservation that, I would recommend to have, to be careful about associating whatever business name or business brand you choose with another business that you have no control of, because if they get in trouble for whatever reason, that could, negatively affect what you are looking to do. And so that's another thing that you can kind of bring up. Well, like Katie said earlier, that there is going to be a business attorney that comes on, and you can kind of follow up with her to get more details. But for the most part, that's kind of how that works. And then, yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, no, I was gonna go and tell Elizabeth some things that I had set aside for her too, and I know it was rounding down on time, so
Go ahead.
and so Elizabeth was asking about platforms to do marketing on and stuff like that outside of social media. Social media, as we know, it's a decent platform, but to kind of target people directly, I'm sure you know about LinkedIn, so I'm going to just mention that first. But just kind of get with professionals. But there are other sites. One that's really good for people that are near you is called Alignable, and Alignable is, people are pretty active. It's kind of like LinkedIn, but Alignable is it's literally like LinkedIn. I'm not even gonna hold you. It's professionals that are on there, but they're business owners, just business owners for the most part. LinkedIn is professionals of all areas, but I mean, there are professionals on Alignable, but most of them are owners. And a lot of times you want to get to the decision makers as possible, and they are pretty active. Alignable is good at putting plugs out there for you, which is why I recommend them. If you start a profile with them, they'll say, hey, Elizabeth Peoples with your life consulting, has just joined. She said this, she did that, so forth. And they'll just keep putting your name out there as active as you remain. So I highly recommend them. And then because of the work that you do, a lot of times we think of Fiverr and Upwork as somewhere to go and pay people to do work for us, but a lot of the work that you do is what people are going on there to pay for. So consider having a selling account on Fiverr or Upwork so that you can be able to get people to consider you for consultation. And Neighborly, I don't know if I said it already, but Neighborly is it's just like Alignable. Neighborly is more people in the community. It's people who they're telling their neighbors, hey, someone's cat is missing, or so forth and so forth. But oftentimes you're finding people on Neighborly they don't really care for Facebook or social media. It really limits you to your surrounding. Like, it goes by whatever your zip code is. It's going to ask you to release your GPS, or your location rather. And it's going to give you access to people in a certain mile radius. I can't think of it off the top of my head. So those are some really good platforms to kind of get your brand out there using the internet. And lastly, I wanted to drop with or end with Ashley, because she did pull up 2 points, and I did not know, Ashley, your business was nonprofit. So that was I was surprised to hear that, but that's really cool that you're doing that. Dr. Prewitt kind of, he did say what I'm about to say, but one of the specialties that I do is simplifying complex topics. So hopefully I can a little reiterate what he says and help you have a even better understanding of what he said. But one thing I want to acknowledge was for the marketing portion, it does matter who the people that you are looking to attract. It would depend on what type of marketing strategies that you would consider. So he said something about, you could probably do branding, or you can do press releases, or You can do social media. It's all types of different brandings, or excuse me, types of marketing you can do depending on what is it that you're looking to accomplish. So I just wanted to reiterate with you, because I am a marketing specialist, that I do understand it depends on the type of people that you're looking to attract, so you can know what you can do to get in front of those people. And in terms of donors and nonprofits, it did make sense what he said to you about considering a consultant, a grant writer, because that's what they do. They kind of stay out there and they are looking intentionally for opportunities that line up with your services, and they're putting your services together. So I'm going to just, drop a little shameless plug, tell you about this firm called You Are Life Consulting. The lady that is there, she basically, spend her time working with organizations like that. She kind of knows, if you tell her what you're looking for, she can go and look and see what different grants are out there. I'm sure he's even able to write a grant for you. I'm sure can spend time and make the call you need. So, just letting you know, something to consider.
Thank you, RJ.
You're
Okay, I do want to
welcome.
say one thing about the naming really quickly. And I'm sure that the legal person might touch on this, but there's levels of protectability in terms of trademarks. And so like if you have like fast hot pizza, you're not going to be able to protect that, right? They're not going to say you're the only person who can call your pizza fast hot pizza. And then there's like another level up, which is like if you do something that like cheetah pizza, right? So cheetahs are fast, and it's pizza, so it's descriptive. And then there's another that's like totally out there that doesn't really have anything to do with anything, like Apple and computers, right? And those are the most protectable, is when they're further away from each other. But you have to make sure that it doesn't cause market confusion. So it is important to make sure that there's no one playing in that space with the same name or the same sounding name. So just a couple little things to think about as you're thinking through a name, if you're in that part. But we are over time by 2 minutes. I know I'm usually a stickler, so I'm going to close us down, but we will keep talking about the business model stuff, and we are going to send you a bunch of information and examples of business models, so you can use those as kind of a reference as you're making yours, because we wanted to give Dr. Prewitt as much time today as we could, because he had so much great stuff to say. So we will send you those references. So, all right, with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and we will see you on Wednesday. And bye, everyone. It's great seeing you.